Welcome to the Rebel Movement podcast. I'm your host, Haley Barnes, and today we're going to be moving away from strategy and talking all about energetics. And in particular, how your self worth can be the catalyst for huge, huge growth and impact in your business, relationships, and life itself. And joining me to do that is my very, very good friend and women's empowerment coach, Patrycja Rembiszewska. Now, I have been honorary witness to this insane transformation she's been on over the past couple of years, which she'll share with you in a sec. But it's been amazing to see how much she's grown and is thriving in her extraordinary life she's created, which you're all going to learn about very, very soon. So, hi, thank you so much for joining me on this podcast.
Hi, thanks so much for having me. It's so exciting to be here and having this conversation with you.
Yeah. And just to let anyone know, we're very, very good friends. Like if some random jokes come out, it is totally normal for us. You will have to bear with us. But I would love to just start by letting everyone know like your story, your background, and basically how you got to where you are now, because it is just an incredible transformation.
Sure. So I can kind of start from, I would say, the main beginning of where it actually has begun. So for me, I had a really big awakening like back in 2018. This is where I had just left a toxic relationship. I felt like my self-worth was shattered. I was basically starting from ground zero. So the way I kind of like to picture is it's almost like you're stripped down from everything that you had known or thought you'd known. So back then, it's really like, okay, how do I rebuild myself? And I had really had no idea coaching existed. Basically, I was always guided, hey, you should go see a therapist. You should go see a therapist. I remember I did go see a therapist the one time, and basically everything that she told me to do was basically everything that I already had done. And she was just so amazed, like, how did you know how to do this kind of stuff? And I already had this awareness happening, and I started like diving into some books, and just starting to like learn. But I remember when I started getting into the coaching space is I first picked up like the very first book. It was by Lori Harder. It was called A Tribe Called Bliss.
Mm-hmm.
And she really went into speaking about like discovering your authentic like calling, releasing your fears to like basically reaching like your next level. So it was so inspiring to like start reading that. Then I started following her on social media and I started finding these like other amazing coaches. I basically went through all of her followers. I'm like, yeah, I found Gabby Bernstein, I found this. And that's when I kind of
Mm-hmm.
started like diving into a little bit more and more. And eventually, because I was, I guess, typing coaching and so many different keywords, I had ads like that kept popping up at me and saying like coaching, coaching. And I was like, okay, what the hell is coaching? Excuse my language. So I remember this one certification program came up and I basically decided to take it. And it was a very time and scary time for me because that's when, the lockdown was happening. I just lost my job. And I only had, I think, like $7,000 in my bank account, and this program really cost like 4,000. So I
Mm.
was just like, you know what? What else am I going to be doing in this lockdown if not educating myself? So I took that leap, and I'm really, really happy that I did because I finally started surrounding myself with incredible women, like-minded women that wanted to change and start shifting things. So I remember we would do like coaching practice calls. Like I was learning about how the subconscious mind works. And it was just so fascinating for me. And I was just like, whoa, I could have like known this a long time ago to start shifting things. And I think if I knew the information that I had like then, 2 years ago before I found it, my transformation would have been quicker. But the fact
Mm.
that I was like doing all the searching on my own, Google, reading books, asking people, and actually, no, there was really no one to ask because nobody knew anything of this
Yeah.
around in my circle. So when that's kind of like when the beautiful journey started unfolding for me, being around these incredible women, doing like a full 180 for me, and basically being inspired by amazing women. But the real journey unfolded for me was when I first booked that one-way ticket to go to Tulum. And that trip challenged me. The 6, 7 weeks I was there challenged me so much. It was outside my comfort zone. First time I've ever went to like a place where it's just like all jungle. But I remember, I'll never forget this girl. I was walking to Holistica and she's riding a bike and she's just smiling. She's glowing. And I just
Mm.
look at her, I want whatever she's having because I just felt her like magnetic energy and that vibe. And eventually when I started like surrounding myself with more of the people in Tulum and just like learning and asking questions, I was like, now I get it. And that's why
Mhm.
Tulum has a special place for me because that's where my journey has just begun. So I started learning more about self-worth. I started reprogramming subconscious mind. I started working with other people. And then I just realized that I have become the after effect of where I was before. And that's when I really wanted to empower other women and start basically sharing my journey, but also being able to help others because I feel like all my life I have always been meant to be a helper, but I never really understood how until
Mhm.
I went on my own like self-discovery journey. So even if it feels scary, like it's good because it's not supposed to feel comfortable. Like you are supposed to challenge yourself and the change actually starts happening when you step outside of your comfort zone and start like rebuilding yourself and your self-worth because then you start attracting like these like magnetic experiences. And that's when my life started shifting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
incredible. And we met in your second season of Tulum, and
Yes.
even like from that period of time, which was this time last year, right? I'm so dated with all the
Ye-
years and the times, but
well,
it was
we
the
met
beginning of
in
last year.
April,
Yeah,
April of
April
last year.
2023. Yeah. And you even helped me like build up a lot of self-confidence. I was going through a lot of personal situations in my own life, and you helped me on a friend to friend level bring out so much like self-confidence and ditch self-doubt and all the things, and which we tie to self-worth. And it's incredible, like I've experienced what you can do and how you can elevate people, and I know that like you're going to make such a big impact in this space. So for anyone who is kind of listening and thinking, okay, yeah, self-worth, we absolutely know we need self-worth. It's incredible to have. But can you give us like three, maybe like more granular examples of how self-worth can really impact and elevate like your business or relationships or even just life itself? That would be like really
Mhm.
helpful.
So when you look at self-worth as like a high level, sometimes we basically think it's like, okay, we have to become more confident at work or we have to become confident in this area or the relationship, but it really all starts with you. So
Mm.
in order to start like seeing that shift happen in your workplace, in your relationships, and your friendships, to start attracting the people, to have those proper boundaries set, you have to start with you. So, for instance, let's just talk about improving confidence also like at work, like, raising your self-worth. So imagine someone who is in the workplace, they really feel insecure about their professional abilities. They have their doubts about their qualifications. They might like accept their lower pay to avoid any challenging projects due to like that lack of confidence within themselves. So when they finally start working on their self-worth, like by working on their self-worth, this person actually starts recognizing that the value that they do provide in the workplace, the expertise that they do have, and they start advocating for themselves more effectively by asking for that fair compensation and taking more challenges, and being rewarded with the different tasks. So with the increase of self-worth, this really leads to having more confidence into having a better performance at your workplace, having more recognition from like your supervisors or peers, having more opportunities for like advancements. And this might even challenge you to even be like, you know what? I deserve better than this. I'm going to quit this job and I'm going to find something better.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something once you start being able to work on your self-worth, you start realizing that I'm not settling for this just small little 9 to 5 paycheck. I'm not accepting their 1% or 2% raise because let's be honest, like in corporate, they don't give you much of a raise. Like I think I went from earning 38,000 my first year to 40,000 with a raise. That's nothing.
Yeah.
And until I started challenging myself in that one workplace, I basically I applied for promotion. My self-worth was actually not great at that time. I remember I was so scared. My hands were shaking and trembling, and my boss could see this. And he's like,
Yeah.
"No, we're not going to give it to you. We're going
You're
to
not
give it to
ready.
someone else."
Mm-hmm.
But I knew I was meant for more. So I had the courage and I quit that job.
Mm.
And I found something better and better and better. And here we are today. So it's all about taking risks and just start believing with yourself and yourself and start taking that action.
Yeah, no, it's so
Yeah.
true.
Yeah. And when you want to talk about like more relationships, right? So when I even look at my own personal like connections, I really struggled with setting boundaries. I was a huge people pleaser where people would take advantage of my goodness, because I have a good
Mm.
heart.
So true.
So sometimes, they would ask for, hey, can I borrow $100, like money? Hey, can you do this? Guess what? I
Mm.
would drop whatever I was doing and I would go help that person because I'm like, oh my God, they need me. And it's
Mm.
almost like it gave me like a sense of feeling needed and like value.
Mhm.
But that basically you start attracting those like unhealthy relationships because you have that feeling that you don't deserve better, which leads me back to my toxic ex. I was in that kind of like phase where I was dating a lot and I felt like, I had to marry at a certain age because my parents got married at the age of 20. So I was always seeking out these relationships. And for once, this one guy gave me this a little bit of attention, like a little bit of love bombing, which I thought, oh my God, finally someone like loves me, someone gives me attention. But I didn't realize that I had no proper boundaries set. So I let him into my world and I let him shatter my world.
Mm.
So that was like very unhealthy. And when we choose to stay in that relationship, or if we don't work on our self-worth, we keep attracting the same thing over and over again. So it's all about breaking those patterns and raising your self-worth to be able to understand like your own needs and setting those healthy boundaries. So then once you have your raise your self-worth, for instance, you become like comfortable to start walking away from relationships that don't serve you. You start attracting those like attractive, like supportive, like partners. I mean, the results speak for themselves. I'm attracting the best high quality men right now. Like I have the best high quality experiences where a
Mhm.
guy messages me and says like, hey, can you be ready for 8? I'm going to order a car for you. What would you like to
Mm.
eat? I'll pre-order for you. That's something I never experienced, but I know that's because my worth was not there and I never thought I was worthy of that.
Mm. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
so, so powerful. So I think with my personal life as well, like we're very, very similar in terms of like, you know, going through them periods of people pleasing or what like acts of service is both our love languages. So
Yes.
it's super easy to like attach them together as well. And I think such a big thing for me when I was elevating my self-worth was having these boundaries and knowing who to have a bit more leeway with and who not to have a little bit more leeway with. Because sometimes it's the people that you love the most that you have the most leeway with boundaries that can really impose on the self-worth that then ripples into your business and stops the growth of business, and there's this huge like ripple effect that comes from like different elements. So if you
Mhm.
really raise that frequency with your self-worth, you are just like crossing this huge like plethora of different categories that you're actually impacting, whether it's business,
Yeah.
whether it's life, whether it's relationships with friends, whether it's relationship with your loved ones, whether it's with your children, without your children, like whatever you are doing and who you're doing it with, it really just helps because like looking after others, you got to look after yourself first. So like having that level of self-worth, like you say, you attract better people into your life because you call bullshit on the ones that are only here to like sponge off you essentially. So yeah,
Yeah.
it's incredible. And same with clients, right? In business, like once you raise your self-worth, you then attract these clients that don't take the piss, right? They're
Mhm.
there to like honor your boundaries, they're there to honor your expertise, they don't question you. They take action on like what you're whether you're a service provider or a coach, what you're saying, and they have that level of respect. So yeah, it's just like there's so many ripple effects that I keep saying for self-worth, which is just incredible. So yeah, having someone to help like bring this bar up for you is just it really does help life.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention because as you were saying, that sometimes it's hard for us to set those boundaries, especially with the people like we love.
Mm.
Remember how hard or how much like I had difficulty setting boundaries with my parents last year? How
Mm,
scared I
mhm.
was to basically tell them, "Hey, I'm going to Tulum again." I was basically
Yeah.
shaking, and you're like, "Girl, you're a 31-year-old woman. What are you afraid of?" And when I
Yeah.
had those conversations and I started setting those boundaries, it felt incredible, and I felt like, now they respect me more, they give me more my
Mm,
space,
mhm.
and they don't treat me as this person that they can, like, control, because I know my parents love me so much, and I was the only child, so they want the best for me. So I always felt like everything that they say that they do, oh, it's because they're doing it because out of love. They're doing it because they love me so much. They see the potential because they have so much years of experience. But the thing
Mm,
is, they don't walk in my shoes. They don't know my life. They don't know what I had to overcome. They don't know my thoughts. They don't know my beliefs. And it's like I have to become my own person. And it came to the point where I told them, where I was like, I love you guys so much, but this is my life. This is my experience, and you will not understand it. And that's okay. You guys lived a different life.
Mm,
But in order for me to be happy and experience things, I had to also make my own mistakes. You won't be able to protect me from that forever. And having that conversation, I remember my hands were shaking because I'm like, oh my God, it's
yeah.
almost like stepping up to a bully, but it's not a bully. It's like your parents because they love you
Yeah.
so much.
It's
But
scary.
after I had done that, and it's been a year, I probably have the best incredible relationship with my parents right now.
Yeah.
It's so healthy.
Yeah. And that's the thing. We'll move on into like the how for people to take away from, like on this podcast episode so they can start implementing it, today onwards. But I will say that like self-worth isn't like you can do things today to really help change it and to send it on like a separate trajectory. But what I found, and from what you've just said, I believe you do too, is it comes over having sometimes uncomfortable conversations, and it comes from having this like proof that you're doing the right thing and you're making the right decisions, and like you're leading your own life essentially. So yeah, like I would love to know. I know that you really focus on reprogramming subconscious behavior. So can you let us know like why reprogramming subconscious behaviors is like what you tend to focus on and why it's so impactful, and for anyone who doesn't understand that terminology, like what that even includes in the day to day.
Yeah, so when you think about reprogramming your subconscious mind, so think of yourself like from the age of 0 to 7. So anyone that's listening with kids, pause this because I don't want to break their spirits for Santa Claus. But when you think about it, growing up, your parents always say it's like, oh, Santa Claus is coming, or the tooth fairy is coming and all of that
Mhm.
kind of stuff. And it's like you believe that. So it's like whatever adults like tell you, your caregivers, like you take on their beliefs because this is the person that's raising you. This is the person that's feeding you, putting clothes on their back. So you believe their beliefs.
Mm,
And it comes to a point where you reach a certain point when you're like at the age of 8, you start having these questions. Like I remember I started questioning, I'm like, well, we live in an apartment building. There's no chimney. So how is Santa actually going to come here? How is it
mm,
possible? There's so many kids in our class. How is he going to make it to every single house? Like you start questioning those beliefs because you believe that it's not true. But from the ages of 0 to 7, we're basically are like a walking subconscious sponge. Like we're absorbing everything from our teachers, our caregivers, the music that we listen to, the movies that we listen to, like the movies that we even watch about the princesses and stuff like that. It's like we believe that Prince Charming is there. And, that's how every Disney movie ends.
mm,
So we grew up with these beliefs because we don't even question it because we don't have that critical faculty, right?
mhm,
So whether that these are beliefs are like negative or like limiting, such as feeling unworthy or, we're incapable of success. So to give an example, all of my life, my parents like worked really hard. Like their belief was like, you have to work hard. I saw them work 4 or 5 different jobs. So as I have gotten older, I always believed, okay, I got to find a steady job. I got to get that paycheck. I have to work and like multiple jobs. By age of 19, I had 4 different jobs where I was not
mm,
happy, I was not fulfilled, but this is what my parents taught me. So this was my belief.
mm,
So until we start actually like reprogramming our subconscious mind and understanding that these beliefs were actually not our own, this is something that was passed on to us, we will never be able to change.
mm,
Because when you take a moment to sit down with your thoughts and have that awareness where it's like, well, where did this belief actually come from? Is this something that I made up for myself? Or is this something that I always heard my parents speak about, my partner, my grandma, my grandfather, right? You want to start questioning them. So by actively like reprogramming the subconscious patterns, like using different techniques such as like affirmations, visualizations, or different therapy, we start replacing those like limiting beliefs with more positive, empowering ones. But the thing to keep in mind as well is you can do so many like affirmations, such as I'm wealthy, I'm healthy, I'm confident, I'm this. But if your subconscious mind is not aligned with those beliefs, it's literally like I want to say throwing spaghetti at a wall and just never
yeah,
sticks. Like it's not going to
mhm,
stick. Like you want to make sure that you change the base foundation, which is your core beliefs, in order to start aligning with those affirmations and visualizations. So the process, of the result of like this reprogramming is more aligned to have a mindset where our actions and attitudes start reflecting a healthier like sense of like self-worth.
mhm,
So this transformation can actually lead to a significant improvement in different areas of our life, right? We could have enhanced performance and satisfaction of business. We can have healthier, more fulfilling relationships, a great sense of value of overall life satisfaction. So Essentially, by shifting the foundational beliefs that influence our behavior, we overcome like old barriers. We start embracing new opportunities,
Mm,
fostering like positive language for like lasting change. And this applies in so many different areas of life. When you think about your fitness, your career, your love life, what you're worthy of, somewhere along the lines, you picked up something that's not necessarily yours.
mm.
But this belief does not mean that it's meant to stick with you forever. You can reprogram it.
Yeah, exactly. It's so, so powerful. And I think that's like awareness and clarity around what your beliefs are and what aren't your beliefs are just like the first step. Um, and so yeah, I would love to know like we categorize all this under inner work, right? That's what the terminology is in the online space. So like for someone who has never done this before, what would you recommend them to do to begin their practice?
So to begin your practice, first, I mean, you want to really kind of clarify like what do you want to start with? And sometimes when we have so many different areas that I feel like they're falling apart, we really want to prioritize one. And one of the things I would always start with is prioritizing your self-worth because that is like the foundation for everything.
Mm,
So having that awareness and also acknowledging that self-worth is like the cornerstone of like fulfilling your life because it's going to trickle down to so many different areas of your life, whether that's your business, relationships, your personal well-being, because they're all deeply connected with how we perceive our own value. So by focusing on building and nurturing your self-worth, you set a strong foundation to basically positively influence like other areas of life. So whenever, even if you're sitting on a computer, like type in like the wheel of life, you have this big circle and you have different like a chart that you can kind of fill in where it's going to say, okay, this is my family relationships, my career, this is my, health, this is my beliefs, other activities. And you're going to rate it on a scale of how happy you are in each area. So when you notice that, for instance, your, let's say, career is at a 2, then your relationship is probably going to be like hovering around 3 or 4 because like you're not happy. Then your friendships are going to be around a certain point. So you're going to start noticing the patterns that everything is fairly low. So really to kind of like start seeing a change is really by working on yourself first. So
mm,
recognizing that changes in one area can actually affect others. So
mm,
for example, if you want to improve your self-worth, enhance your confidence, you basically want to start by, I would say, working with someone because
mhm,
sometimes we can't call ourselves out on the BS.
mhm,
And when you speak to someone, you're going to be able to have that conversation. Sometimes, like, Haley, when we're talking, I will tell you certain things that I listen to and I
mhm,
observe, right? And that
mhm,
helps you be like, whoa, that's a good mindset shift.
mhm.
And even sometimes, like myself, like, although like I do coaching, I find that I still need someone to call me out on something
Yeah.
because we might not even realize what that one pinpoint is, what we could shift. So,
Mhm.
although we can read the books, listen to all the podcasts, but putting into action is having that coach to
Yeah.
basically help you through that process. And eventually, you will have the different tools and access to things. Like I said in the beginning, it's like if I found out that I could work with a coach 2 years sooner, I would because it
Mm,
would have had to accelerate my process because my journey did not begin until I started working with other coaches.
mm.
So I would say that would be kind of like my main takeaway from it.
Yeah. And I love that. I find that even people that haven't like they are actually really inept in doing the inner work with the wheel of life, it just gives this like overview that I check in on, 2, 3 times a year to be like, okay, or maybe even when I'm overwhelmed, I'm like, Jesus Christ, like what is it that like is which wheel or which pillar is actually like causing me the most overwhelm right now? And I just do it quite quickly and I'm like, okay, well, this makes sense because maybe like I think finance is one of them. Maybe like, the revenue hasn't been consistent recently, so
Mhm.
finance is down or like socials down because of this. And then you can like start building them up and then just causes less overwhelm in your life all the time. So it's so good. Like even people that, like I say, meditate, they journal, they're really inept in doing like the inner work, they do the affirmations, having that awareness and that checking point like multiple times a year can really, really help just bring that level of peace and contentment in knowing who you are, where you are, and then you can elevate your self-worth from there. But yeah, I totally agree with you. When we check in on each other and you call things out on me, I'm like, you know it, and then at the same time, when someone says it to you, just like, "Yeah, no, like, you're 100%
Yeah.
right."
Yeah, we
So,
need that. And I think it's always
yeah.
important to have those like people in your life. And they say it's like you are like the product of the five people like in your life. So my idea is always surrounding myself with like high value like friendships, like having like really good conversations. Because let's be real, I'm not here to talk about the weather. Like I want to know how you're doing and I want you to know how I'm doing,
Mhm.
right? So I think that's also important.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. Well, this was always like always a pleasure to speak to you, and we've had some amazing takeaways for people to get started. And if anyone wants to explore Patrycia's world a little more, then check out the show notes for an exclusive offer that she's given us for this podcast, which is amazing. Can you also let everyone know how to connect with you, what the best platform is, where they can drop you a line after listening?
Yeah, so best platform I would say is my Instagram. So Patrycja Rem, and I know that's difficult to spell out. So it's Patrycjaremb.
Perfect. It will be in the show notes, so you can just click through as well. So, thank you so much for being here. It's always a pleasure, like I said, to talk to you. And I know everyone will love this episode.
Thank you.